Most people don't see it coming. They misread the Sigma male entirely. His silence, mistaken for weakness, his love of solitude, assumed to be loneliness, his calm demeanor, seen as passive, but that's the first and often last mistake people make. Because beneath the surface of a Sigma male is a force that doesn't need to roar to be felt. Sigma males don't need to raise their voices to command attention. Their presence alone speaks volumes. They don't seek validation, approval, or dominance through aggression. Instead, they observe, calculate, and wait. And when the time comes, they act with precision. The reason Sigma males are often feared, even by alphas, is because their power is quiet, internal, and unpredictable. While others are busy posturing, Sigmas are watching, thinking, mastering their surroundings. They live by the quote, "The most dangerous man is the one who observes everything and says nothing." This isn't just poetic, it's psychologically sound. Studies in behavioral psychology reveal that individuals who display high emotional control and minimal outward reaction tend to hold more inner strength and resilience. Sigma males embody this. They can sit through storms, both internal and external, without flinching, because their power doesn't need expression, it's built in. This kind of emotional and psychological control makes people uncomfortable. It creates an unsettling mystery. What is he thinking? What is he capable of? That calm silence becomes the eye of a storm, and everyone around him feels the tension without knowing why. It's not that Sigma males are violent or aggressive, it's that if pushed, their reaction won't be messy. It'll be swift, sharp, and final. That's the real danger. Like a lone wolf, they don't bark to intimidate, they simply bite when needed. So how do Sigma males show they're dangerous? They don't. That's the whole point. You feel it, not through what they say, but in what they don't. And the world can't stop watching because deep down everyone knows. The calmest ones are often the most lethal. Point 1. They master the art of silent dominance. Sigmas don't need to flex, shout, or prove anything. That's rookie behavior. While most people rely on loudness, bravado, or social validation to establish dominance, the Sigma male operates on a completely different frequency, one of calm precision. When others bark and posture, Sigmas are quietly analyzing the room. They observe without reacting, calculate without boasting, and strike only when absolutely necessary. This deliberate detachment isn't weakness, it's power under control. It's the kind of energy that unsettles people, not because it's aggressive, but because it's unreadable. This is where the true danger of a Sigma lies, not in his words, but in his silence. Silence is often underestimated in today's noisy world, but silence in the hands of a self-aware man becomes a weapon. It creates mystery, tension, and curiosity, and people fear what they cannot predict. The average person is accustomed to loud threats and overt displays of power. But when a man stands unshaken, says nothing, yet holds unwavering eye contact, you know something deeper is going on. That's when the fear kicks in, because you're no longer dealing with someone seeking approval. You're dealing with someone who already knows who he is and what he's capable of. It's the stillness before the storm that keeps people on edge. The storm doesn't announce its arrival with noise, it builds in silence. Likewise, the Sigma's presence creates a shift in the atmosphere, not because he demands it, but because others instinctively adjust to it. It's like watching a panther in the jungle. It doesn't need to roar to command respect. It simply exists, and everything else falls into place around it. That quiet confidence is not something you can fake. It's forged in solitude, built on introspection, and sharpened through experience. Psychologically, humans are wired to react more strongly to ambiguity than to direct threat. This is known as the fear of the unknown, and Sigmas embody this principle to perfection. Their unpredictability, their refusal to conform, and their emotional self-containment make them walking enigmas. And in a world that constantly tries to categorize people, the Sigma's refusal to fit in makes him all the more intimidating, not because he tries to be, but because his silence speaks louder than anyone else's noise. Point 2, they control their emotions like a strategist. Here's a scary truth. When you can't be emotionally manipulated, you become invincible. And that's exactly the secret power Sigma males possess. In a society where reactions are currency, where outrage fuels clicks and drama drives attention, the man who refuses to be baited stands apart. Sigma males are not emotionally detached, they're emotionally disciplined. That's the difference. While most people explode under pressure or get drawn into arguments to defend their pride, Sigmas pause, observe, and calculate. They don't react, they respond. And that response is often so calm, so unexpected, that it throws manipulators off balance. Imagine this: someone tries to insult or provoke you, expecting anger or defensiveness. Instead, you give them nothing, no raised voice, no twitch of frustration, just silence or a calm nod. That's the Sigma effect. Their emotional control isn't weakness, it's power disguised as indifference. When you're no longer a puppet to someone else's emotional strings, you can't be controlled. And that terrifies people who rely on manipulation to dominate social spaces. This is why Sigmas are often labeled as cold or intimidating, but the truth is they've simply mastered a level of self-awareness that shields them from toxic entanglements. They've studied the rules of social games, the lies, the guilt trips, the gaslighting, and instead of playing along, they flip the board and walk away. That kind of unpredictability makes people nervous, because most conflicts operate on a predictable script. Poke, provoke, explode. But when the Sigma refuses to play his part, the game collapses. Psychologically, this kind of restraint is linked to high emotional intelligence. Studies show that people with strong emotional regulation are better leaders, better problem solvers, and less prone to anxiety. Sigma males aren't just lone wolves by choice. They've understood that solitude sharpens their emotional sword. While the world is busy reacting impulsively, Sigmas use that stillness to strategize. It's like being in a storm, but remaining dry because you saw the clouds coming and stepped aside before it hit. So yes, a man who doesn't lose his cool is unpredictable. And unpredictable men who can't be emotionally rattled, are dangerous. Not because they're violent or loud, but because they're free. Free from manipulation, free from emotional traps, and free from anyone's control. That kind of emotional armor isn't just rare, it's powerful. And in today's chaotic world, it might be the ultimate form of strength. Point 3. They walk away from what most men chase. There's a silent power that very few men ever master, the ability to walk away without looking back. It's not just about ending a conversation or exiting a relationship, it's about reclaiming one's power by refusing to entertain what no longer serves their mission, their values, or their peace. When a man walks away from validation, attention, or even the magnetic pull of a beautiful woman who disrespects him, he performs one of the boldest power moves in the psychological playbook. He's not storming off in anger or playing mind games, he's simply choosing himself over the illusion of approval. And that right there is what sets a Sigma male apart from the rest. Unlike men who crave validation to confirm their self-worth, Sigma males operate outside the typical social hierarchy. They don't rely on others to define them. They are what psychologists would call internally validated. That means their sense of identity comes from within, not from applause, attention, or being desired. So when they sense disrespect or emotional manipulation, they don't argue, plead, or try to win anyone over. They disengage quietly and firmly, not out of weakness, but out of strength. To outsiders, this kind of detachment seems cold. How could someone just walk away from someone so beautiful, so desirable? But to the Sigma, beauty without respect is like a crown on an empty throne, attractive but meaningless. They view relationships as partnerships, not prizes. And if the energy isn't reciprocated, if dignity is compromised, they don't waste a moment explaining, they simply exit. This behavior is often mistaken for arrogance, but in truth, it's discipline. And discipline is terrifying to those who lack it, because it reflects what they secretly wish they had: self-control, boundaries, and the courage to walk alone rather than stay somewhere they're not valued. In a society that rewards people-pleasing and performance, the Sigma male's refusal to chase or beg disrupts the script. He's not interested in being the loudest, he'd rather be the realist. And his silence speaks volumes. Ultimately, when a man chooses to walk away from attention, validation, or disrespect, he's not losing anything, he's gaining everything: his dignity, his peace, his power. And in a world starving for authenticity, that's not just rare, it's legendary. Point 4, they're dangerously smart and strategic. Sigmas are thinkers, strategists of the highest order. Unlike impulsive individuals who react in the heat of the moment, Sigmas operate with a calm, calculating precision that unnerves even the most confident opponent. These are not men who rush into situations blindly. They observe, they analyze, they understand the terrain, both physical and psychological, before they make a move. What makes them truly dangerous is not how loud they are, but how quiet they can be. In that silence lies a mind constantly at work, decoding body language, dissecting motives, and predicting outcomes with unnerving accuracy. You see, Sigma males tend to have a deep interest in psychology, human behavior, and pattern recognition. This isn't just for show, it's a survival mechanism and a strategic advantage. They're the kind of men who read books on social dynamics, pay attention to micro-expressions, and notice things others miss. While most people are caught up in surface-level conversations or distracted by emotions, the Sigma is mentally 3 steps ahead, mapping out your intentions, cataloging your tells, and formulating a response you won't see coming. Think of a Sigma like a grandmaster playing chess, not just any chess game, but one where he already knows your next 5 moves. That's not fiction, that's strategy, backed by the science of predictive behavior. Studies in cognitive psychology show that the best decision makers are those who delay their responses long enough to analyze multiple variables. Sigmas do this naturally. They don't overreact because they've already seen the end game. While others guess, Sigmas calculate. While others chase, Sigmas observe from the shadows and let patterns unfold. And when it's time to move, they don't shout, they don't flinch. They strike with surgical precision. Their power lies in controlled motion, deliberate and impactful. It's why their actions hit harder than words ever could. A Sigma doesn't need validation, applause, or approval. His silence is his shield. His intellect is his weapon. And his understanding of people, that's the trap you won't even realize you walked into until it's too late. So if you ever find yourself face to face with a Sigma, don't mistake his quiet for weakness or his distance for indifference. He's not checked out. He's simply watching, learning, and waiting. Because when he finally moves, it's never by accident, it's by design. Point 5. They don't fear being alone. Loneliness is often seen as a punishment, a harsh and empty space where people feel abandoned or forgotten. But for the Sigma male, it is anything but a curse. It is power. Solitude is not just a quiet backdrop to their life, it is their training ground. In a world obsessed with noise, validation, and constant social interaction, the Sigma male chooses silence. And in that silence, he grows stronger. While many struggle with the weight of being alone, Sigmas use it as an opportunity to sharpen their minds. Psychological studies show that solitude, when chosen rather than imposed, boosts creativity, self-awareness, and mental clarity. This is exactly why the Sigma thrives in isolation. With no one to impress and no distractions to dilute their focus, they dive deep into introspection. They examine their goals, dissect their failures, and design their next move with surgical precision. Their thoughts become weapons, honed to a razor's edge in the stillness most people run from. You see, Sigmas don't fear being alone because they don't need external validation to define their worth. Unlike alphas who lead the pack and betas who follow it, Sigmas walk alone, not out of weakness, but by choice. Their independence is not just a trait, it's a lifestyle. And that's what makes them so powerful. You can't control a man who doesn't fear being disconnected from the crowd. Try to bribe him with attention. He doesn't need it. Try to manipulate him with exclusion. He prefers it. His solitude makes him immune to emotional blackmail. This is exactly what terrifies those who feed off constant approval and connection. People who rely on groupthink and collective ego can't understand how someone can thrive outside the system. To them, silence is dangerous because it represents freedom, freedom from conformity, expectation, and control. The Sigma male, with his self-contained strength and unshakable independence, becomes a threat to the status quo simply by refusing to participate in it. So while the world keeps scrolling, posting, liking, and chasing fleeting validation, the Sigma remains still, alone but never lonely, isolated but never disconnected from his purpose. And when he steps out of that solitude, he does so sharper, calmer, and more focused than ever. Because for him, loneliness was never a prison, it was a forge. And in it, he has become something few truly understand, a man who doesn't need the world to know his name in order to make an impact. Point 6. They speak last, but with finality. Sigmas are a breed apart, not interested in the noise, the spotlight, or the exhausting game of one-upping others in a room full of egos. While most people rush to speak first, to dominate the conversation, to flex their intelligence, or to assert their dominance, the Sigma male watches quietly from the sidelines. He lets the chaos unfold, the heated debates, the emotional outbursts, the clash of opinions. It's all just background noise to him. He understands something that most don't. Energy is a limited resource, and timing is everything. So while others waste their breath trying to win arguments or score points, the Sigma conserves his. He's not silent because he has nothing to say. He's silent because what he has to say will matter more when spoken at the right moment. This is a tactic rooted in psychology and even ancient strategy. Think of Sun Tzu's, where he writes, "He who knows when he can fight and when he cannot will be victorious." Sigmas live by this principle, choosing not to engage unless there's something worth engaging in. They play the long game, and when they finally speak, just once, calmly and confidently, the room listens. Not because he demanded attention, but because his words carry weight. There's real science behind this effect. Studies in communication psychology show that people who speak less but more meaningfully are often perceived as more intelligent and authoritative. It's called the less is more effect, and Sigmas use it instinctively. Their words are precise, thoughtful, often layered with wisdom that cuts through the noise. It's not showmanship, it's substance. And the result? A kind of hush that follows their voice. Not awkward silence, but the heavy silence of realization. That's when people get quiet. Not because they were defeated, but because they've just been exposed to truth in its most potent form. And what happens next is both subtle and powerful: respect and a little fear. Not fear of violence, but fear of what else this quiet observer might know, might say, or might do if pushed. That's the power of restraint and timing. Sigma males don't seek to dominate. They simply embody such calm control that others naturally fall in line. It's not the roar of a lion that shakes the forest. Sometimes it's the silent stare that makes the wolves back down. Point 7. They set boundaries without apologies. You know what's truly dangerous in today's world? A man who says no and doesn't flinch. In a society where peer pressure, guilt-tripping, and social manipulation run rampant, the ability to calmly reject what doesn't serve you is a rare and formidable power. Sigma males have mastered this art. They operate with an inner compass so strong that external opinions barely shake them. When a Sigma male says no, it's not out of rebellion or ego, it's from a place of clarity. They've already weighed the cost of saying yes and chosen the path of self-respect instead. These men treat their time, energy, and values like a vault, sealed tight and only accessible to those who've earned the key. You won't catch a Sigma justifying his choices to win approval or soften the blow. He doesn't explain, he doesn't defend, he simply decides. And this stoic decisiveness can be deeply unsettling to people who rely on emotional influence or social conformity to get their way. Psychologically, this type of detachment is linked to high emotional intelligence and self-regulation. Sigma males tend to score high on autonomy scales, which means they thrive independently and don't need external validation to make choices. They're not driven by trends, approval, or fear of missing out. That's what makes them a force of nature. When you can't be guilted, manipulated, or swayed, you don't just walk through the world. You move through it like a silent storm, calm, controlled, and unstoppable. Point 8, they're unpredictable by design. Sigmas play their cards close to the chest, and that alone unsettles people. Unlike others who crave attention or validation, Sigma males operate on their own terms, guided by an internal compass rather than external approval. This self-reliance creates an aura of mystery. People can't quite figure them out, and that ambiguity becomes deeply unsettling. You never truly know what a Sigma is thinking, planning, or feeling, and that enigma haunts those who are used to reading people like open books. Sigmas move in silence. They show up when they want, disappear when they choose, and when they return, they're sharper, wiser, and more composed than ever before. That kind of unpredictability makes them immune to manipulation. You can't pull strings on a man who doesn't care for the puppet show. In psychological terms, this behavior aligns with high emotional intelligence and internal locus of control, traits that allow them to detach from social pressures and move independently. Society tries to trap men in predictable roles and responses, but Sigmas, they break the mold entirely. You can't trap a man who doesn't follow a path, especially when he's busy carving his own through the wilderness, far from the noise of the crowd. You see, Sigmas aren't loud because they don't need to be. Their presence speaks volumes without ever raising a voice. This isn't about scaring people into submission, it's about earning respect through quiet confidence and unwavering independence. Sigma males defy categorization. They don't fit neatly into society's boxes, and that's exactly what makes them powerful. While the world obsesses over fitting in, Sigmas focus on standing out by living authentically and pursuing truth over trend. They don't crave validation or chase the spotlight. They build their own platforms on their terms. In a noisy world craving direction, Sigma energy is the quiet storm that disrupts the norm. So be the calm in chaos, be the warning in silence, be the storm they never saw coming. And if you're one of them, welcome to the Sigma Brotherhood. Stay sharp, stay Sigma,